Fremantle is known for its markets, street artists, laid-back lifestyle, great food and coffee culture. Just a few minutes' drive from the hustle and bustle of Fremantle's main street, however, is another equally busy place. It might not attract the same bohemian crowd, but its role is just as vital to the vivacity and culture of Western Australia. Fremantle is one of our state's most significant ports. Every year, thousands of ships pass through this harbour. These days, the port's cranes can be seen from kilometres away, loading and unloading containers and livestock. With the addition of visiting naval vessels and cruise ships, the port is in operation 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The harbour has played a pivotal role here in Western Australia since the first ships berthed here in 1829. Sailors, traders and government officials alike were looking for a safer and more efficient way of transporting goods into and out of the colony. So why the history lesson? Because that gives us the perfect chance to introduce Richard Offen from Heritage Perth to talk about one of his heroes of West Australian history, a man who really played a big part in shaping our state. Now tell us, who was he and why was he so important?
His name was C.Y. O'Connor. He was an engineer. He came here to be the state engineer. Sir John Forrest went to New Zealand and headhunted him to do a number of projects that were required to make this place viable, given that they were in the beginnings of a huge gold rush. And one of the first projects he undertook when he came here was creating this harbour.
Now, his activities weren't just limited to the harbour, were they?
No, they weren't. He extended and improved the railways in Western Australia, but probably his best-known project was the pipeline that took water to the eastern goldfields in Kalgoorlie. It was a mammoth undertaking, pumping water from Mundaring to Kalgoorlie, 600 kilometres. 113 years later, this is still the longest steel pipeline in the world.
So Richard, why was C.Y. O'Connor's design for the harbour so important?
Well, until this harbour was created, there was Long Jetty just around the corner here. Sea captains hated it because in strong breezes, and let's face it, we get a lot of those around here, it was murder to bring a ship alongside. So there were lots of suggestions of ways to use this area as a harbour, but there was one problem. There was a stone bar across the entrance which prevented all but the shallowest bottomed ships getting in. C.Y. O'Connor overcame the problem by blasting through that, dredging this river out so that deep draft ships could get in. And they said, of course, it won't work. Proof today, it did work, and it remains a deep water port.
It was these great visions for our state, however, that proved to be O'Connor's undoing. Sadly, not far from here, the place where he'd had some of his biggest and longest-lasting impacts on Western Australia is C.Y. O'Connor Beach, the place where he took his own life. So tell me, why did C.Y. O'Connor kill himself?
Well, the pipeline was considered by many to be a scheme of madness, and the criticism of C.Y. O'Connor from both the Parliament and the media was both vicious and relentless. And in the end, one morning, he rode his horse out into the water here and shot himself. And of course, a year later, he was proved to have got it absolutely right, because the water was running from Mundaring Reservoir up to Kalgoorlie.
What an amazing part of our history.
And you know what? It's still working to this day. He was a genius.
And there he is, out in the water now.
Yeah.
While the Fremantle Harbour has been deepened and expanded in the years since O'Connor's death, its layout remains the same, and his vision ultimately has allowed it to become a major gateway for national and international trade. He was one of our state's greatest visionaries. So the next time you're walking up the main street of Fremantle, soaking up that amazing culture we have, enjoying the food and wine, spare a thought for the contribution made to WA by C.Y. O'Connor.